Welcome everyone to the simulation frequency. On today's episode, we're going to be covering the Neville Goddard money myth and how to use discernment in the manifestation economy. There's a pattern I've been watching repeat itself from inside the simulation, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It usually starts the same way: a confident voice, spiritual language, and absolute certainty. Then the promise appears. Not just abundance, not growth, not alignment, but instant, massive wealth. $30 million overnight. Billions through imagination alone. No friction, no time, no effort. And almost every time, the foundation of that promise traces back to the same source, Neville Goddard. So today, I want to slow this down. Not to attack Neville, and not to attack people who follow him, but to bring some discernment back into the simulation, because something important has been lost. Neville was a compelling speaker, a gifted lecturer. He taught imagination as creative force. He emphasized inner states. He encouraged people to assume outcomes mentally before they appeared externally. That part is not controversial. But here's where the distortion begins. Neville is now being framed online as if he personally cracked a financial cheat code that produced instant, unimaginable wealth. And there's just no evidence of that. Neville was not a documented billionaire. He was not known for creating massive financial empires. And he did not publicly demonstrate millions overnight. What he demonstrated was rhetorical skill and psychological insight, not extreme financial outcomes. That doesn't make him a fraud, it makes him human. The problem is what came after. So, how did Neville turn into a money machine? Neville's work existed in a very different context. He lived before anything like YouTube monetization, subscription communities, algorithmic outrage, and spiritual sales funnels. Today, his ideas are being repurposed, not just taught. And the repurposing follows a familiar formula. Quote Neville selectively. Add urgency. Add massive numbers. Remove time, effort, and context. Replace nuance with certainty. And suddenly, imagination isn't a psychological tool, it's a slot machine. And if you don't win, you're told you didn't assume hard enough, you doubted, your vibration was off, or you interrupted the process. That's not empowerment, that is a closed loop. Many of these YouTube videos claim that you can receive 10, 20, $30 million instantly or overnight. Let's talk about this specifically. When someone says $30 million overnight is normal, this happens easily, this is how the simulation works, that is an extraordinary claim. And extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And here's the key question. If this were true, if instant wealth at that scale were reliably achievable through imagination alone, why isn't there verifiable documentation? Audited proof, consistent independent examples, and transparent financial records? Is there anybody in the comments below that can evidence that they earned $30 million overnight, or were able to get $30 million in an hour, or $10 million overnight without doing anything? Literally just sleeping in your bed and waking up with $30 million in your bank account. I'm not saying that this isn't possible, but in the world of probabilities that we live in, to collapse that timeline for yourself with such a definite video claiming that you can do this overnight or within an hour, it feels very scammy. So instead, what we usually see is testimonials with no verification, stories that can't really be traced, and creators whose income comes from selling the belief itself. That's not manifestation. That's actually marketing. Now, here's where the discernment matters. People just don't believe this stuff because they're stupid. They believe it because it works, just not in the way that it's advertised. Imagination can change perception, can influence behavior, shift attention, increase confidence, reduce fear, and improve persistence. When those things change, outcomes sometimes improve. That doesn't mean that the money appeared magically, that the universe is just going to automatically deposit millions, and that reality will bend without any effort. It means the nervous system changed, and the behavior followed. The problem is when correlation gets sold as causation. Let's talk about the reticular activating system trap. One of the biggest tricks in manifestation economy is misunderstanding attention. When you focus intensely on money, you notice opportunities more. You talk about money more. You take more financial risks, and you interpret events through that lens. It's not necessarily the universe responding. It's your brain filtering reality differently, but not always necessarily has to be mystical. And when creators present neurological effects as supernatural guarantees, the discernment starts to disappear. And let's talk about why the followers defend it so hard. This is the uncomfortable part. Once somebody invests money, belief, and builds an identity around a system, questioning the system feels like self-destruction. So when the evidence doesn't appear, the belief tightens. Everything becomes fake news, persecutions, or test of faith. And at that point, belief is no longer exploratory. It's defensive. And defensiveness is not a sign of truth. It's a form of identity fusion. Here's the cleanest way to say this. Neville Goddard didn't show us anything fundamentally new. Ideas about imagination, belief, and assumption existed long before him. He just articulated them well. He didn't solve economics, override probability, remove effort from wealth creation, or demonstrate extreme outcomes personally. What he did do was tell stories that felt true. And storytelling is powerful, but storytelling is not always proof. So let's talk about how the simulation actually works. Reality responds to behavior, skill acquisition, timing, opportunity, networks, taking risks, and the regulation of our nervous system. And imagination influences those factors, but it doesn't replace them. When someone sells imagination as a replacement for structure, effort, and reality constraints, they're selling fantasy as certainty. And certainty sells very well. So how do you stay sovereign inside of the simulation? Ask, is this person selling possibility or certainty? Are they showing verifiable outcomes that are true or just language? Does their income come from results or from teaching belief? Are doubts welcomed or punished? Is responsibility shared or always placed on the follower? A lot of these questions usually can cut through everything. Here's the real takeaway. Imagination matters. Belief matters. Inner state matters. But any system that promises instant millions without any friction, it's not spirituality. It's a sales narrative. Neville didn't necessarily give anybody a cheat code. Modern creators turned his language into one. And the simulation doesn't punish belief. It exposes imbalance. When the belief replaces discernment, collapse follows. In closing, this isn't about tearing anything down. It's about upgrading how we think. You don't need a guru to imagine. You don't need permission to question. You don't need fantasy to build a life. Discernment is not skepticism. It's intelligence applied to belief. And inside the simulation, intelligence is always rewarded, eventually. Make sure you stay grounded, stay curious, and stay self-directed. And as always, I know you will continue to manifest magic and resonate on your most aligned frequency. Bye, guys.